Hello and welcome to the first unit in this music theory primer that we're putting on. This is presented by Jacob's Vocal Academy. If you saw my intro video, hi, I'm Nick. I'm going to be taking you through in these next few videos some very rudimentary foundations of music theory. This is intended for somebody who's basically never seen music before or has very little experience with it. So if you're more experienced, you may skip ahead a few videos. If not, it may not hurt to have a touch up, even if you're familiar with it. So we're going to jump right into this first lesson, which is on rhythm and meter. We have to kind of start building our foundation from those rather than from notes. So with rhythm and meter, we're going to start out talking about some common time signatures, meters and bar lines. And then within those, we're going to talk about basic note and rest values, as well as some basic counting systems that you'll get to try out in some practice in this lesson. So what's in front of us is 4 measures of 4/4 time. Now we're going to kind of unpack that a little bit. I know that doesn't make sense on its face, but in total here, or around the screen, we have. So this is the time signature, 4/4. We're going to talk about that. We have bar lines separating out meters, and then we end in a double bar line. So we're going to talk about all that stuff. First off, what is the time signature? So the time signature is what's going to tell you how many beats are in each measure and what note value is considered a beat. So with this extremely common simple time signature, 4/4 time is what it's called. The top number, this 4, this 4 is going to tell you how many beats per measure. That tells you there are 4 beats in the measure. The lower 4 here denotes what kind of note gets the beat. Typically on the bottom you're going to see either a 4 or an 8. The 4 indicates a quarter note, whereas the 8th is an 8th note. We're not going to deal with those in this lesson, but we'll get back to that later for you inquisitive types. So other common time signatures, 3/4 is a good example. So you probably guessed we've got 3 beats per measure, but the quarter note still gets the beat. And then there are some compound meters, for example 6/8, where 6 beats per measure, but the 8th note gets the beat. Again, we're not going to deal with all that just yet, that's just to put an earworm in you. So, you know what the time signature is now. You know that we've got 4 beats per each one of these measures separated out by a bar line. And that, whether or not you know what it means, you know that I've told you the quarter note gets the beat, whatever that means. We'll get there. So, in terms of note values, everything is kind of based off of that 4/4 time signature. It's based around that system of 4s. So when you see things that we're going to go through whole note, half note, and quarter note, remember that's going to be based off of your 4/4 time. So a whole note in 4/4 time, as you might have guessed, would be 4 beats or a whole measure. Then we're going to add a stem to that, and that gives you a half note worth 2 beats of a measure. And then we're going to fill in that to make it a quarter note, and as you've surely guessed at this point, that's going to be 1 beat of the measure. So I want you to have a chance to practice here in these 4 measures of 4/4. I'm going to count you off, give you 1 run through it unassisted, and then I will clap and count through it with you after that. So here's your practice run. 1, 2, 3, 4. And right there you should have ended with that last whole note into the double bar line, which denotes, while I'm talking about it, the double bar line denotes the end of a piece of music, or sometimes just a section of a piece of music. So let's back up and try this again, and you can check yourself and see how well you did. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Off. So hopefully your first practice run was something similar to that. Hopefully that gives you an idea of what a quarter note feels like being on every beat at that tempo, and whole notes and half notes as well. It all adds up very simply at this point in time. So you may have thought, what about silence in music? What about the moments where we don't need sound, because there's not always sound from every person and every piece of music? Well, that's where we need rests. And the rests are going to work just like notes, where the length of each one in relation to its name is based off of the 4/4 time signature. So this is your whole rest. It's going to have 4 beats of rest, of just total silence. It's easy to remember which one is the whole rest, because if you look at it in relation to the line it's placed on, it looks like a hole in the ground. So that's a real simple way to remember that. Then there's a half rest. Of course, that's going to get 2 beats. And the way I like to remember this one, it's a little silly, but I think it looks like a hat, which makes me think of a half rest. Whatever works best for you, just stick with it. And this is the quarter rest. This one I could not draw with my lovely Microsoft Paint graphics, which you will come to be familiar with throughout this series. This is a little more complicated when drawn professionally, but this is the quarter rest and gets 1 beat of silence. So I want to point out here before we practice again that this is my little Microsoft Paint quick drawn quarter rest. I apologize that it's not professional, it's just the easiest for us to work with in this unit. So I'm going to give you the exact same kind of practice that I did last time. I'm going to count it off once, let you go through it on your own, and then we'll go through it together and see how you did. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. How do you think you did? Hopefully it went well. Hopefully you didn't make noise over the rests, anything like that. So we're going to back up and try it again. Now this time, although you'll hear me counting all the way through, I want you to pay attention to where I clap and where I don't. I'm actually going to go through this twice so you can hear it done 2 different ways. The first one's going to be with claps. The second one will be with a different system we'll get to. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 4, 1, 2, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, off. So pretty simple. Pretty simple. The second measure is maybe a little tricky to go off on 3, back on 4, and then totally off for a measure. This time though, I'm just going to kind of give you long notes with my voice, not pitched or anything. But that's just to give you another idea of something you might want to do in your practice time. I don't especially care for counting on numbers typically, because you need to get used to holding out a note longer than 1 beat. So let's see how this system goes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Da, 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 and that's the end of it. So see, just a total neutral syllable, counting in your head, being responsible for the rest and everything. That's kind of the singer coming out of me, but I think that's a reasonable system to use as you're learning this, especially as you want to graduate from clapping. You can count it like 1, off, 4, 1, 2, off, 4. But my problem with that sort of system is that it tends to lead you to think of half notes and whole notes as 1, 2, 3, 4 instead of just holding it like a whole note. But right now, just do whatever works best for you. And honestly, I would recommend playing around with a couple of different systems, and maybe even going back and looking at these 2 practice examples that I have in the video and changing the tempo. So that should give you plenty to work with on Rythm. Check out the worksheet. There's going to be some more to fill in there. You can write in some bar lines and practice with 3/4, 4/4. We're not going to touch on 6/8 yet. And we'll see you in the next video where we're going to start touching on some notes.